In just 59 seconds, a $480 million Russian drilling platform was melted into a tower of flame sensors dead. Communications collapsed, and the Black Sea's map changed color before dawn. At 2:07 a.m., fog blanketed the water. 3 UAVs, each about the size of a car door, skimmed along at 78 knots. Guided by a hidden relay drifting among commercial shipping lanes, a Trojan horse quietly opening the battle space. A coastal command node went dark, radar blind, spoofed GPS silent, and a naval corridor opened straight through for precision fire. In modern war, steel cannot save pride when a system collapses to math, timing, and silence. Then a 41-second EW strike blinded the sensor mast. FPV's surgically severed antennas. A mini torpedo cracked the concrete base, turning the attack from a bright spot into a black hole in Russia's defensive chain. What decided this battle? The Trojan relay, deceiving the surveillance net, or Katrin accepting destruction to unlock the spectrum. And after the blackout on the Black Sea, what is Ukraine's next move? Keep watching to see each tactical layer peeled back from decoy to EW, to the finishing blow below the waves, and to understand why precision plus timing plus silence are rewriting 21st century naval warfare. Ukraine brought down a $480 million Black Sea platform. White lightning tore across the horizon as 3 UAVs slid through fog at 78 miles per hour, beyond radar reach. Strike now or wait for Russia's response was answered at 600 meters. The opening detonation. Shockwaves rolled outward, clearing the way for the next cascade of attacks. A 2,000-degree blaze erupted from the lower deck as the second UAV ripped through a high-pressure line. Inside, only residual heat and darkness remained. Saving systems or people was a moot question. The defenses were mute. Years of calculated moves slid into place, making the $480 million fortress burn from within. The first blast split the silence, white light throwing sparks across the sea. 2 USVs sliced the night. And at 600 meters, 5 small FPVs popped their lids and swarmed like bees to a lamp. No cinematic thunder, only a high-frequency roar. Then a nearer blast that snapped steel and silenced command systems. 10 seconds later, the control array shattered. Dials washed out white, screens turned to snow, and the primary jammer burned out. This was a strike born of calculation, not chaos. The $480 million steel and concrete mothership, built to dominate signals, was never built to survive a dance of heat. Later remote readings logged 1,800 degrees Celsius at the blast center, enough to deform frames and melt cores. Crew moved through smoke. Sirens wailed in ragged bursts. Orders died in the hush. Another microblast punched the deck. Ruptured pipes hissed fuel that caught fire. Flames braided upward, and the surveillance fortress turned to ash. The strike began as a whisper and ended like a verdict, proving even a floating citadel can scream. 22:15, 4 hours before the blast, while the rig slept in confidence, a cargo ship quietly departed Constanța, Romania. No escort, no odd signals, but inside, a 2,3-ton secret, an invisible nerve linking shore to deep sea. Amid merchant traffic, a crane lowered the Trojan horse into black water, then vanished into the crowd. The ghost craft drifted alone, lights out, antennas folded so small it hid beneath a tanker's wake. From that decoy, the whole strike became possible. Had Russia spotted it, the plan would have gone up in smoke. $5 million worth of drones falling silent in enemy waters. As you watch this, imagine staking an entire operation on something smaller than a skiff. Ukraine did and won, but perfection is short-lived. At 1:42, a sonar ping would betray the silence, and things would start to unravel. The sea lay still, but the spectrum seethed. Ukraine's formation drifting like ghosts, until that perfect echo appeared. A young officer on a Russian escort spotted a pattern repeating every 9 seconds, too symmetrical to be real. He called it in, Seconds later, a Tor M2 missile slashed the sky toward the Phantom source. That was the moment Ukraine awaited. When the enemy radar opened its own surveillance map wide. At 600 meters, Katrin popped its cover and launched a single FPV bait, meant to be hunted. The Russians believed they killed the target, but in truth they had opened the door. The decoy's death gave Ukraine a golden 30 seconds. Enough to pinpoint the radar source, log jamming frequencies, and prep the kill shot. Below the waves, Talos 9 quietly repositioned, a low-band transmitter humming beneath the noise floor. The trap inverted. The hunter was now being mapped. On the platform, control lights flickered, a sign that blindness was about to fall. At 1:45, the sea seemed to hold its breath. In Ukraine's command center, a Delta Phase Q flashed the order to blind the giant. Katrin 7 activated its EW core, projecting a 780 kW burst locked onto 9.3 GHz. Only 41 seconds, but enough to turn Russian radar screens to white snow, erase every defense icon, throw sparks from antennas, and leave systems reeling as if their memory had been wiped. Inside the artificial whiteout, a second Katrin opened up. 5 FPVs burst forth like thinking insects, knifing low over the waves, linked by fiber optic tethers as thin as fishing line, immune to their own jamming storm. 3 homed on the spoofed GPS array. 2 hit the 30-meter primary comms mast. The lead craft trimmed its angle by less than a degree, threading an 80-centimeter steel frame, a perfect knife thrust in the dark. 40 seconds passed, nothing on the rig saw or understood what was coming. When visibility returned, one antenna was gone. Another sagged into a 1,500 degrees Celsius melt, and the sensor tower folded like wet cardboard. The Black Sea fell quiet again, but it was the quiet before collapse. Below, Talos 9 had begun to move, ready to deliver the final blow. At 1:49, the sky erupted. 2 Su-30 SM sliced cloud at 29,000 feet. Radar locked onto the surviving Katrin. Ukraine knew Katrin was built to die beautifully. It spat 6 magnesium flares at 2,400 degrees Celsius, brighter than its own engine, tricking Russian missiles into bursting over the sea. On the seabed, Talos 9 chose attack over withdrawal, turning its trap between sonar and collapsing rig into a counterstrike. At 18 meters depth and 450 meters from the rig's base, it detonated a 10-pound torpedo. The muffled thump like a heartbeat, with shockwaves at 9,000 pounds per square inches ripping through the seabed, cracking weak concrete, rupturing hydraulic and gas lines. On the surface, fire met fuel. A new pillar of flame towered upward. The deck twisted, and shorted power lines flickered blue in the smoke. By 1:53, the entire rig listed 6 degrees, a death sentence for any offshore platform. The sea swallowed echoes. The sky bore the aftermath. And for a long moment, the Black Sea seemed to forget how to breathe. At 2:15, where a massive steel block had stood, was now a charred skeleton leaning askew. 30-meter flames consuming 4,000 gallons of oil. At 2,100 degrees Celsius, the heat bent frames and liquefied circuit boards that once anchored Russia's southern command web. This was not just fire, it was collapse from within. 2 strikes and a precise torpedo fractured the concrete at 3 points. Engineers later calculated loads exceeding 9,000 pounds per square inches. No platform could survive it. When the west leg failed, the upper deck dropped 1.5 meters, severing every cable and snuffing out the last vestiges of control. Overhead, smoke curled into a thermal column visible from 48 miles away, while Russian escorts circled helplessly amid static and cinders. The rig hub for radar, GPS spoofing, and encrypted comms was sinking, and Russia's defensive network fell silent. Within minutes, the electronic fog cleared, GPS drift around Kherson shrank near zero, guided munitions regained accuracy, and reconnaissance drones lit back up. For the first time in months, Ukraine's battlefield picture turned sharp. At 2:29, A commercial satellite captured infrared imagery, a 21-foot thermal void amid the wreckage. The image spread rapidly through maritime channels. Insurance spiked, routes shifted west, and civilian ships marked a dead zone. By sunrise, every coastal command post understood Ukraine hadn't just destroyed a platform. It had pulled the keystone from Russia's Black Sea strategy. As the flames shrank to a trembling glow, the Black Sea was no longer written in signals but in silence. Ukraine shattered not only a symbol, but the myth that power can hide behind steel and distance. From now on, every radar operator in the region will glance twice into the dark, wondering what else waits there. And you, what do you think changed the war more? The Trojan relay's cunning, or Katran's sacrifice? Dawn spread over a sea that still smelled of smoke, cooled steel fragments rocking in the cold swell. For the first time, Russia's coastal radars felt utterly silent, reflecting a void like staring into their own abyss. In Kyiv, screens showed the first clean band of signals, a proof that the strike had taken form. But this victory is not just ash and steel, it's a warning that in modern war, intellect and patience have replaced brute force. Every empire that believes itself invulnerable has a blind spot. And on that quiet patch of the Black Sea, history just etched a new ripple. Ask yourself, if a tiny relay can redraw the map of power, what waits in the next shadow? Don't look away. The next chapter of this war may already be unfolding under that very sea.